Let's look at the education, which is the science of pedagogy that influences the Wisdom Workshop workbook. The path is a series of P's: presence, purpose, process, projects, people, partnerships, and perspective. Also, we will explore play, perseverance, power, and perspective. And principles. We're going to look at when designing and relating to time, new relationships with time design and time architecture, to become a participant in time and create the conditions of our specific potentiality. Mere attention is not enough. We need a senseful awareing to the present moment, attention to the other to bring them delight, attention to our environment to understand the ecology and responsibility with our climate and immediate environs. For example, we will use a 70-minute workshop time box that includes a check-in, free writing with mindfulness, a review of the week before, a task and presentation of a challenge, and a brainstorm to look at how to execute that weekly challenge. This check-in, free write, review, task, and plan changes week to week. One way to approach this is to ask yourself and see yourself as a teacher. If you could teach anything, what would it be? If I gave you $20,000 to research anything in the world in the next year, what would that be? I hope you don't quit your daydream. If you expect your passion to feed you, you might starve it to death. It's a sacrifice to fund your dream. You don't need to be a starving artist. You don't need to quit your day job, but there's a risk of exploring your passions. Unless you love it and you can't help it, unless you really can't imagine doing anything else, keep going. Don't quit your daydream. This is a course in existential education, finding our purpose and finding our agency and freedom. Question: how do we give young people more agency in their educations? 2. Second question: how do we give midlife professionals more agency in their existential education? And 3, how do we give ourselves more agency in our own existential education? Helping others develop self-transforming minds may be the most important work we can do. Teaching soft skills, but understanding soft skills as empowerment skills. This connects to creativity, communication, and collaboration, to be able to empower ourselves to be better learners, to process information. How we teach is student-centered, culturally responsive, in other words, not colonial, and involving the web of relationships, parents, kids, and educators. We might find ourselves in a collaborative inquiry cycle of immersion, investigation, coalescing, and going public. In immersion, we express curiosity, wonder, and integrate our background knowledge in a particular area. We deepen that with investigation, questioning, searching, and researching for information and discovery. We coalesce that information to dig deeper, synthesize information, and increase our knowledge base. And then we go public with it. We share. Then we reflect and learn to demonstrate that understanding. In other words, we read, make, share, read, make, share, read, make, and share. This is close to Lorna D. Cervantes, at her poetry reading at Colorado State University on October 8th, 2020. that we have 4 phases of a creative act: generation, selection, revision, and then critical evaluation. It has to be play. There's a prayer in every word when I write poetry, she says. Dancing and beadwork can be ways of emptying the cache of the mind. Quote, we were building a road as we were walking it. Quote, her poetry comes out of love. It's all an act of discovery. She's a student of Robert Haas. She also says, how to perform with emotion, forget yourself. What we're going to do is to create Passion Project's challenge card. You may choose instructors and projects based on your interests to learn your passions, health, and mindfulness carefully. This connects to self-determination theory in pedagogy. We want something that's personally meaningful, a demonstration of skills, abilities, and values. What we should learn is how we create our own metrics and measurements that can be our particular way forward in this universal framework. We'll use each week a series of experiments and experiences, questions and quests, readings and writings, invitations and initiations, and tools and techniques. Exploring the idea that, quote, work is love made visible, Khalil Gibran. We will read, make, and share. Where the ego is our friend. Some conditions apply. Some conditions apply. To befriend our ego, we're looking for a well-trained, cultivated, and cultured ego. Question: what would it look like if we treated our ego as our friend rather than our enemy? How would we approach it? For example, we don't know what we want. The ego identifies with a new raise, position, and status, and that's going to hurt when we get what we identify with or not. Another example, where we identify where we are actually happy, investigating our pleasures. These 2 examples show us learning to re-identify with the right things, in our case, kindness and love. We are not our work. We're creating delight for the other. At the core of this is a transformation from Sean 1.0 or Sean 2.0. What does it take to upgrade? Trust your peculiar self by being yourself. We're generating an autotelic culture, a culture where we pursue goals for their own purposes. Quote, the impulse to keep to yourself what you have learned is not only shameful, it is destructive. Anything you do not give freely and abundantly becomes lost to you. You open your safe and find ashes. End quote. Annie Dillard on writing, spending it all the right way. Also true about life. The 3 keys to happiness are purpose, people, and projects. With purpose, we're exploring our perspective and philosophy, our meaning and sense of function. Quote, whoever has a why can endure almost any how. See Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And this purpose is something bigger than ourselves, but also necessarily includes ourselves. 2, people. This is also a sense of partnerships and relationships that we sustain and have. George Valiant famously said, happiness is love. It's not what you know, but who you know. It connects to communicating our philosophy and purpose. Simon Sinek's Start With Why. 3, projects, our enterprises and experiences. Susan Wolf explores a definition of the good life as active engagements with projects of worth. Question: what is truly worthwhile? Perhaps the science of self-motivation can help us. According to the research presented in Daniel Pink's Drive, there are 3 sources of self-motivation: mastery, autonomy, and purpose. We can be motivated to become masters in the skills to get better at something we care about. Autonomy. We can be motivated to have a sense of agency and to have more time to do what we want to do. And purpose. We can be motivated by meaning. Again, that's something bigger than yourself, that includes yourself. Enter the Wisdom Workshop, which is an experiment in education and economic design. We embrace that life is a creative project, personally meaningful, that we're building confidence skills and developing abilities and values, that we are working towards sustainability and equity-based pricing, a pay-what-you-will model, nonprofit form of for-profit, strengths-based pedagogy, not about remediation, what you can do, to activate intrinsic motivation, to increase self-regulation, reflection based on goals and self-goals. We explore students as teachers, and Krishnamurti's teacher that there is no single path to the truth. Truth is a pathless land. Also exploring subscription education. These actually aren't all about the Wisdom Workshop as it currently stands, but does show the iterative design that we explored to make this viable and possible. This connects to Friedrich Schiller's aesthetic education. This famous essay was addressed to his former student, and he advocated for play, openness, and curiosity, being present, evoking and creating beauty as a way of life. He identified the concept of the play drive, which is close to my will to play. He says this is the equilibrium between our sense drive and our rational drive, our sensuality and our reason. It's relaxed and moved, and it goes into our physical development, aesthetic development, and moral development. To find an equilibrium of shared meaning, our own play with everyone else, a call to a state of being where we are truly experiencing our desire for order. And in our desire for order, control subverts our ability to play. Another fascinating metaphor for the Wisdom Workshop learning pods is to consider the necessary ingredients for creative incubators as part of the background for the Philosophy Maker Workshop. We need 1, a space to create, 2, opportunity to gather, 3, resources, food and fuel for creation, and 4, people to share with. In order, we support others and challenge them. This connects to the life journey education model, where the purpose of learning is to be able to continue to learn how to learn. We're looking to be a holistic person, which includes our emotion, social skills, and sense of purpose in conversation, critical thinking, and curiosity, where we find a compass and wayfinding. We look at 5 pillars of mastery to become the best versions of ourselves. This is a sense of self-discovery, psychological skills, a psychological framework, rest and recovery, and mindfulness. We look at Robert Keegan's 5 phases of adulthood, exploring the self-transforming mind that may be our saving grace and key to unlock the powers of a friendly ego. And we explore this as a way to connect to notes on midlife emergence, not just the midlife crisis, but what the crisis portends, the emergence that arises out of the crisis. For Erik Erikson, he identified identity crisis and role confusion that happens usually once in a person's lifetime. In the 21st century, there's reason to believe that this could happen as much as 6 to 7 times. For example, COVID has created more crises, major identity transitions for the entire society, and has also connected to us individually, leading to more depression, anxiety that might be an identity crisis. To respond to this looks like notes on learning from different people, cohort models of education, online education, online personalities, and online thought leaders. I advocate for transdisciplinary studies where we write about Zach Cook writes about transdisciplinarity in educational systems to better integrate pedagogies from the arts, humanities, sciences, engineering, and medicine. That is what we should be learning. Roger Martin on how to think integratively out of the siloization of higher education. This can be taught to elementary through college and after college. That's where we are. For an example, instead of telling someone that you're an idiot, you can say, well, that's interesting. What do you see that I don't see? Is there a way to integrate what you see into improving what I see? We need to be teaching the curiosity about perspective, not just to evaluate right and wrong, but to discover perhaps a better way. To teach this integrative thinking, there's a teaching methodology. First, we can compare exclusive or inclusive types of integrations. We explore these in terms of film festivals. Notice, if I am trying to find a model for my film festival and I explore more exclusive versus inclusive film festivals, I could ask, how does each work? What are the outputs? Who is it for? What does it do? And then ask, what are the features that we love the most? The integrative moves to integrate these is to see how they might work in our own case, which is the experimentation. So this is one way someone who's putting on a film festival might explore integrative thinking in a methodology for learning. For kids and adults, we want to help us love learning, to build systematic trainings in creativity through thematic interconnections and interconnectedness, with the goal of expressing who we are through learning. Kids get so excited to find hidden harmonies between seemingly disparate domains. So do adults. Learning for Josh Waitskin is the act of expressing and becoming who we truly are. We do this through joy projects and e-portfolios. The big question is, what verbs bring us joy, and how can we share it? The project timeline of the Wisdom Workshop connects to the project timeline of the project timeline. In the Wisdom Workshop, we look at unlearning, designing, researching, integrating, connecting, networking, and reflecting. And in the project timeline, we look at brainstorming, outlining, collecting, drafting, revising, polishing, and shipping. The creative process of a creative project models the creative process of gaining more wisdom in our own workshop and craftsmanship of character. This is how we integrate career development, philosophy, and the future of education to learn ourselves. Starting with philosophy, moving to presence, entering psychology, exploring projects and path, exploring people and passions to create partnerships and joyous projects, and getting, finally, perspective on it all. This connects to philosophy, education, and career development of our identities, where we fill in the inter pieces. Up next, mindsets and toolkits for the good life, featuring our sense of presence.